Welcome to the Queer Spirit Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Venegoni. Here we have conversations with artists, healers, and activists who enliven the LGBTQ communities and who empower our queer spirits to flourish. My guest today is Maisha Aza. Maisha is a queer Black healer, teacher, and spiritual mentor, co-parent of 2 teens and ecstatic lover of life. She erotically weaves her social justice roots, spirituality, shamanic practices, and energetic bodywork to co-create comprehensive intuitive healing sessions. Today, Maisha shares her story with us of coming to the work of sacred sexuality through cultivating her own inherent sensuality. We discuss her erotic astrology consultations, which is a unique style of reading she created by combining many of her fields of study. We also talk about her healing activism work to create sexual freedom for queer POC to find liberation from oppression. Connect with Maisha at blackgirltantra.com. Hi, Maisha. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I thought that we would jump in and have you start by telling us the story of how you came to the work of sacred sexuality.
Okay. Well, that's kind of a long, windy story. I think a lot of people's stories are. Mine really comes from a number of things. I feel like my childhood shaped it a little bit, but I think my spirit also. So I had a sexual abuse background. And though there are a lot of people who have that background, I think their trajectory can be very different. And mine was always that I was still always very sensual person throughout my whole life, even though that happened and despite that. So, and perhaps even because of it as well, I have a feeling, I think that we try to shy away sometimes from saying, oh, it was this that caused this. And, there's so much stigma around that, that you may have even been turned on while it was happening and things like that. And there's this thing that I started realizing, as I went through social work school and mental health stuff, that I realized, oh, well, yeah, my body still responded to it, even though my mind knew it was wrong and things like that. And there's all the shame and guilt that arrives because of that. And so a lot of it was, piecing through all of that throughout my life and understanding how that impacted it. So for me, my whole life was me trying to heal from that. And then also I have a very strong connection to spirituality. So I have always done spiritual searching my whole life. I'm a Sagittarius, so a lot of questing, my life is all about questing. And it often still went back to sexuality for me, even at a young age. People would feel very comfortable talking to me about their sex life because I wasn't judgmental. And then I got into massage therapy work and things like that, which actually helped me open up my body to feelings and sensations that I had been actually closed off to in some ways. And so all of my sort of searches and explorations kind of lent itself to it. So I don't know if that helps. There's just so much more to it than that. But for the most part, the spirituality piece lent itself to the body piece, which lent itself to the sacred sexuality piece, as well as my queer and my own erotic revolution that I had as a queer person, as someone who was straight and then found out in my 20s that I was a lesbian, and going through that whole process. All of those things lent itself, like going to festivals and things where I got to explore my body freely. All of those things led to this experience of me doing this to help others find their sexual freedom.
Yeah. So I'm curious to hear your perspective, because I've had a few other people on the show who do sacred sexuality or sex and spirit work together. And I think that it's an important conversation to continue to have because of our culture, particularly Christian culture, does such a good job of separating those two. And I think that queer culture does a pretty good job of working to heal and bring those two back together. And so I'm curious to hear your own ideas about how those two things fit together.
So for me, they fit together very naturally. It's something that I didn't ever. So I think part of it, let me back up a little bit. Part of it is that I didn't grow up with a hardcore spiritual upbringing. So I think that already freed my mind to think about things in a different way without the guilt and shame of enjoying sexuality. We went to church when I was younger, but it was like a tool, it wasn't really, I didn't grow up in a religious household. So I think that already set the stage for me to have more openness around it. And then I just experienced everything very sensually my whole life. And I didn't know or have a language for it. I had no idea what to call it. I kind of was a little confused by it. And other people that I dated were confused by how erotic and sensual I was. I got blamed, and there was stigma around that too, right? Like about being fast, or what is the word that they used even in therapy? They used words like promiscuous, right? As though being sexual is a bad thing in general for girls, period, and for people, but especially if you're a little Black girl, right? So I think all of those things I just kind of didn't listen to because I just listened to my body. And so for me, it became important to explore why I was this way, explore why I had this effect on people, because people would be drawn to me for sexual experiences as well. And I would help them with sexual experiences that they wanted to have and were ashamed to have with other people. And so for me, it just felt normal.
So what I hear you talk about being so connected to your sensuality, I really hear that as being this way in which you are so connected to your body. And I'm wondering if there were ways that you were brought up or something in your environment that encouraged that? Or do you think it was just part of or naturally?
Okay, absolutely not. Nothing that in my way of being brought up encouraged that. It was very much just in spite of that. Maybe my mom gave me that book, What's Happening to Me. I think that's about the extent of my sexual conversations. And I mean, she never actually spoke of sexuality. It was just, this is the book, read it. So let me give you an example. And this is much later, but this will help you understand, for me, the way sexuality and spirituality make sense to me. Is that when I had my Reiki, I'm a shaman. So in my shamanic practice, we also were given Reiki attunements and learned Reiki and all of that. And during my attunement, I could feel everything that was happening in my body so profoundly that I had these, what I call now, spiritual orgasms. My body would writhe, and I would the energy, I could just feel it all. I could feel everyone around me. There was music playing during some of it, so I could literally feel the musical notes jumping around and dancing around in my body. And I just became orgasmic. And I assumed that all of the people in my shamanic training class were all feeling the same thing. I was like, this is what everyone's feeling, right? And my teacher was like, no, that's you. That's all you all day. That is how, and she explained to me that that's how you run your own energy. That's how your energy runs. And that really clicked for me. But not only did that click for me, we also studied shamanic astrology in my training. And that astrology helped me understand why my energy runs the way it does. I have a Scorpio Venus and a Scorpio Mars. That helped me understand that all of this sacred, sensual, erotic energy, birth, life, and rebirth and death, all of that is a part of who I am. And that's why I run the energy the way that I do. So it helped me to release my own ideas of who I was and to understand that spirituality and sexuality are very much connected.
So speaking of astrology, one of the things that you offer in your work is Erotic Astrology Consultation. Can you tell us more about what that is and what that looks like?
Yes, I can. Okay, so I'm so excited about this. It just opened my world up. I freaking love it. So I coined the term erotic astrology. It's something I made up as what I do, because I've always been into astrology since I was young. And I have been learning along the way for many, many years, since my for 19, 18 and on. And I'm 46 now. And also I learned more in my shamanic training. So And the way that we learned was to use it to apply it to ourselves, to understand our own chart so then we could understand who we are. And I started realizing, okay, so everyone in my circle, in my shamanic circle, they're not all erotic people, but I am. And I had to understand that this is how I'm supposed to help people. This is what my calling is. And so I started using erotic astrology, which is basically a combination of the Western astrology, a little bit of Vedic astrology, and the shamanic astrology that I learned from my teacher. And I combined them all to help people understand their own erotic energy and how it flows within them so that they can release like the guilt and shame around just being who they are, or so that they can understand that this is how you can open up to your own sexual energy and arrive at this place where you are more embodied, you know? So it's pretty fascinating to me because I've done it for a few people now because I just started doing these. So let me back up on that. I just started doing it as a standalone. What I do is usually provide it for people as a part of the work that I was doing with them, the sacred sexuality work that I was doing. And I was talking to some people, they were like, why don't you just do this? I was like, well, I didn't want to compartmentalize. You know, I want everything to be so juicy and deep and like continuous. And they're like, this really can stand alone. You should do this. Like people were really getting so much from it. So I just started doing them as a standalone and people are getting so much out of it. It's really fantastic. And it gives them a stepping stone to understanding how to let their erotic energy flow. So
I want to pause for a moment and have you define for us what you mean when you say erotic energy.
So for me, I don't have like a specific definition, but I actually see it as the energy, the life force energy that flows through all of us, right? It's what animates our body. It's what makes us juicy. It's what makes us feel all of our senses. To me, it's a combination of our sexuality and our spirituality and our sensuality. And so sometimes those things can be separate, but to me, the erotic energy flows through all of it. You know, people see them as separate and we can talk about them separately, but to me, they don't exist without erotic energy. I don't think sexuality exists without erotic energy. I don't think sensuality exists without erotic energy. And I don't think that spirituality exists without erotic energy. I don't, because you could call it prana, you can call it chi, you can call it all of these things, but to me, all of that is erotic energy. So a really good example of how erotic energy works is that if you say are in an ocean and you feel the ocean, you feel the water like against your skin and it's bringing you joy and excitement and it's making you feel alive, that's erotic energy. And then you feel it like, then you deepen into the experience of it and the sensual aspect of it and the way that it's touching your senses, the smell, the feel, the coolness, you know, all of that. And then your body starts feeling it in an orgasmic way, but that's the erotic energy as well. That's where the erotic has moved from the sensual to the orgasmic, you know. So that's my idea of like what the erotic, an example of what erotic energy is.
Yeah. That it flows not only through us, but through nature and through all of life in that way.
Yes. To me, it's the connection between all of us, the conscious connection between all of us. I think the more you feel it, the more you pay attention to it, the more you can move it around and do with it, you know, direct it and focus it. Yeah.
So can you give us an example of why someone might come to see you for an erotic astrology reading and what kinds of guidance you might give them?
Okay. One example, I have had a few people come to me just because they felt stuck. They were like, I feel like I'm on this sort of precipice, but they didn't know, you know, sort of what direction to take. But it's like this feeling like I know I'm supposed to be doing something else, but I'm not sure quite what it is or how to get there. And I will do the erotic astrology reading and it'll help focus their attention on what it is they came here to do in this lifetime, what they knew already before they arrived here in this lifetime, and what they came here to learn. So all of the experiences that they came here to learn in order to get to their purpose. And to me, that's your erotic energy, and your erotic purpose is understanding, oh my God, this is how I run my energy. This is my Mars. This is my Venus. And not just this superficial, anecdotal way of telling astrology like we do, which often focuses on the negative. If you've noticed, like people just randomly talking about astrology, they're like, oh my God, you're a Scorpio. No, I don't do Scorpios. I don't do Sagittarius, or, oh, Sagittarians are crazy. Geminis are crazy. Like you hear all of these strange like things. And I'm like, no, like, I teach them that how important these archetypes are. Each of these archetypes are so important and they all exist within each of us. So finding out where they exist in your chart helps you understand yourself so much better. So then you're like, oh, that's why I was thinking of doing that thing. Now I know I'm supposed to be doing that thing. And now I know the direction that I can move forward in that thing. And it gives people a whole new like window into themselves and their projects and goals and visions. And that's just one way.
So I know a little bit about astrology, and I was starting to think as you were talking about it, that it's almost as if the different signs and the aspects and the planets are ways of looking at different facets of the erotic universal energy and how they can start to tap into that. And I could also imagine that people coming to see you, it's almost like they just feel like they've fallen out of the flow and you help them learn how to get back on their surfboard or back on their sailboat, and catch that next stream of erotic energy to carry them through life.
Yes, exactly. And not only that is like they'll get back on the boat, or on, the sailboat or whatever, but they'll also like remember like this is a tool that you can continue to use when you fall off again, because we have life happens. And so I think what happens often with astrology readings is that people will use it and then forget about it. And it's important to learn how to use this as a tool to keep reaching back to learn how to use the elements that are involved in each chart. Not only the elements, the planets, as well as whether you're mutable or flexible. And like it helps you understand so much, whether you're cardinal, all of these things, or whether what your focus is. Is your focus on the world? Is your focus on yourself? Is your focus on others? Like each of the archetypes has a different focus. And we often see people who are focused on the self as being quote unquote selfish, but there's a purpose for that. And the purpose may be to help teach others how to do this for themselves, how to have balance. So, and I've also, of course, helped people who have had issues with their own sexuality and their own body image and self-confidence. And it's made such a difference, including the tantric work in with that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that's definitely something else that I have worked with some of my clients on, is this idea of being selfish in a healthy way, because I work with a lot of people who are in service work or just by way of who they are in the world. They focus so much on other people and helping other people, but then they don't have anyone taking care of themselves, even themselves. And so I talk about being selfish, and I think the word selfish has a bit of a bad rap.
Yeah.
And that it's like self-centered, egocentric, but sometimes it's important to be selfish or self-centered or egocentric because we have to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
If no one else is going to take care of us, we have to take care of ourselves.
Exactly. And to me, the way that I see it is it's being self-centered, centered in the self. Like that is the most important thing. And then you expand out from there.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you on that one.
Yay.
So a slightly different aspect of your work is you do sexual freedom work, particularly with Black and I imagine other POC queer folks, to help them work through layers of oppression. And I wonder if you can talk more about that work and what you do with people in that way.
So primarily Black people, POC, queer people. I've actually been getting an influx of cis straight Black women lately too, contacting me, finding me on the internet. It just seems to be that time, right? As there's more of a focus on even Black people in the media and people starting to realize, that it's time to make big changes. And with so much going on with sexual freedom and sacred sexuality and things, all over Facebook and everything now too, people are starting to not see it as scary or shameful. or maybe they still have that, a little bit of fear, a little bit of shame, a little bit of guilt, but they're like, it's okay to go seek this out now. But to me, a big part of that is the religion piece, the church piece, particularly because so many Black people, particularly in the US and all over the world, have been, Black people were colonized because, through religion. So that was a method of control, and so because of that control, it takes a while to sometimes get through all of the layers. And with people being queer and trans and all of these things in addition, and fat and because I'm a size positive person, I am a body positive person. And my political way of looking at things too is that like our whole society, including our subcultures, is very looksist too. And so I try to go deeper with helping people understand where all of the ways that society has fucked us is, has affected our sexuality and the private sphere, basically. All of the public stuff has affected the way that we are with our partners, with our lovers, and all of the brutality and discrimination and all of that affects how we see ourselves and how we love each other. And for me, it's very important to help be a part of that liberation.
Mm-hmm. And I'm also thinking back to what we were just talking about of being self-centered, that it's probably really important for all of these individuals to start with themselves first.
Yes.
To feel like they are in alignment with themselves and strong and powerful within themselves, so they can then go out and help to heal their families, their communities, and the broader world through all these movements that are slowly but surely trying to happen in our country.
Yes, it is. And I find it really difficult to do, because especially as activists, like Black, queer, POC, queer people, like all of the people that are activists, because I've been an activist for many years and I've done it in many incarnations, right? And what I found continues to be an issue is that we often intellectualize things, right? And I even had to break away and break free from the intellectualization of everything and start to really begin to feel too, and not just feel like the sadness and emotions from our people being, hurt and killed and discriminated against, but also like the feelings that are going on in our personal bodies, in our energy field, and how that affects the way we do work with each other in community, and I think oftentimes we don't allow ourselves to be intimate in community. And the intimacy is, to me, where the healing begins. So for me, intimacy isn't just sexual intimacy. We think of intimacy and sexual as the first thing that people think of. But to me, intimacy is getting down into like our real emotions about stuff, our real feelings about stuff, not tiptoeing around each other, but also not brutally, being so brutally honest and so brutally. There's a way that we can harm each other in community, through call out culture and things like that harms each other, even though we're trying to break free from that. And so it's like this cycle. And so for me, I feel like learning to love each other and be intimately like vulnerable with each other is a way for us to connect with each other and be even more powerful out there in the greater world.
Yeah, I hear it as being compassionate while being in conflict with each other.
Yes.
If we can't do that in community with our peers, we're not going to be able to do it outside of community.
Yes, exactly. And to me, it all ends up becoming a part of the spiral, like working with the self, working with others, working with community, and then bringing it back to the people who are the most vulnerable, who need help, So it's also about just making sure we give back. We could continue to give back emotionally, spiritually, compassionately. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's hard as fuck because we've been trained and so we've been indoctrinated in so many different ways to hate ourselves and to hate one another, to compare ourselves to one another, to disown one another because of our differences, So for me, I'm kind of this person who's like, yeah, I do anti-racism work. I've done anti-racism work in the past. And also like, there's a way to do that. Doesn't like hurt everybody and bring us further apart from each other, And I think it's a hard place to be because it hurts. And there's a lot of pain there. There's a lot of deep-rooted pain and things we can't see.
Yeah, and I think we have to revisit the pain in order to bring healing to that.
Exactly. And I like to do that in an ancestral healing way. So I include ancestral healing and ancestral lineage in my healing work, because we can't do that without looking at how we came to be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and doing, current things to heal our ancestral wounds
Mm-hmm.
of everyone.
Yeah. So Maisha, can you share with us a person, practice, or experience that has supported your queer spirit to flourish? I'm sure you probably have a bunch, but just pick the one that comes first.
I have a bunch. Let me think. I think one of the biggest ones was BDSM and like the leather women's community. And I began doing that 99, 2000, somewhere around there. I started going to Michigan Women's Music Festival, and there's a lot of issues around that, of course, too, that I didn't know about at the time when I started. But it was just really freeing for me to be in a space where I felt safe enough to be naked all the time, everywhere I went, to just explore my sexuality in any way that I wanted. There were communities within the festival who focused solely, like a whole leather BDSM community within the community. And there was always some sort of drama, of course, because it's people and everyone has different ideals and values and beliefs. So that happens anywhere. So it wasn't like a utopia, but it was the closest to a utopia that I had ever felt, and really felt welcome. And I've never felt more welcomed in the BDSM community, because it was like, welcome home. Like, you're allowed to be you. Like, you're allowed to be your sexual self. You're like over the top, sexual, sensual, erotic self. You're allowed to think and desire awesome, crazy, whatever thing you can think of, like ideas, like feelings and desires, like fantasies. And you're allowed to like touch and enjoy touch and enjoy pleasure, And so for me, it also helped me understand about consent and boundaries, because I didn't really know how to do that. People would ask me, what do you want and stuff, and they wouldn't do anything to me until I told them what I wanted. And I didn't know what I wanted. I was so new. And I was like, I don't know what I want. Whatever you want. They're like, no, that's not a good answer. Not ever a good answer. Whatever you want is never a good answer. So I had to learn how to know what I want.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to see the menu.
Yeah. I'm like, what's the menu? Because then I can choose. But like, I didn't have a clue. And those kinds of communities for me, especially BDSM community, the leather community, it was all about like, just be you and explore you and learn, And the reason I love that community so much is because there was so much teaching. Everyone was teaching each other so that you wouldn't harm each other, so that you would know how to play in all kinds of different ways safely. And so that felt to me very important as someone who is a survivor, that, I get to say what I want. I get to use my voice. So I found my voice in that community.
Yeah, I think that's something really valuable that the BDSM kink community brings to the world, is the level of education, particularly around boundaries and consent, but also just tuning into what it is you want and what it is you don't want. Mm-hmm. That I think is missing from the sex education in general.
Agreed. It's also missing from the larger tantric community, which is why, I stress that I do queer tantra. Black girl tantra is my way of doing tantra. It's not the tantra, and tantra, in the US is so different from the original tantra anyway, but there's just so much harm in things that are done because people are like, yay, sex. We're just going to have like sex all the time and be like super spiritual, and so spiritual that we don't even focus on consent or boundaries. Like, it can get that way. And a lot of times I've seen it in the larger, like heteronormative community, that's where I've seen so much harm. Not that it can't be done in the queer community, which I'm sure it has as well. But it's just really easy to forget that we still need boundaries and consent. And since it's something many of us weren't taught as children, it replays itself over and over. So that's why it's so important to talk about this as adults and do adult sex education still.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, Maisha, it's been a real pleasure having you here.
Thank
Can
you.
you share with our listeners where they can find out more about your work and connect with you?
Yes, we can. So you can find me. My website is www.blackgirltantra.com. And let's see, does anyone even spell that out anymore? It's just blackgirltantra.com. This is how you can tell how old I am. blackgirltantra.com. And then you can find me on Instagram at blackgirltantra.com. And you can also find me on Facebook at A Life Alive Consulting and blackgirltantra.com. It's all one long word because of when I changed to blackgirltantra.com, I kept my both businesses on there.
Okay. Well, I will have those links in the show notes so people can also find them there.
Thank you. I so enjoyed talking to you.
Well, thanks again for being here.
You're welcome.
Do you struggle with old stories that say you're not good enough, not worthy, or broken? As a queer person, you may have missed out on opportunities during your lifetime to build your self-esteem and gain personal power. I have created an online course to help you change that. Reclaim the Power of You is a course to help you transform your relationship to yourself and others. Together in queer community, you will learn and experience practices of guided meditation and inner journeying to ignite transformation and personal healing. These potent practices of empowerment are quick and effective ways for you to gain clarity and insight, initiating deep healing mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I have taught this course many times in person, but this is the first time I'm offering it online. The course begins October 6th and is limited to just 10 students. Registration will open in mid-September, so if you'd like to learn more about the course and be notified when registration opens, head over to queerhealingjourneys.com/events and get on the waiting list. That's queerhealingjourneys.com/events. I look forward to guiding you on your journey to reclaim the power of you. To find the resources we discussed today, find the show notes at thequeerspirit.com. And if you enjoyed the show, remember to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. This will help us reach and support more queer people all over. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.